Hello everyone, I'm Himali Nalaude and I welcome you all to another episode of Chai Time Gupshup. In our last episode, we discussed about the landmark moment in the political history of India and Bengal, about the landslide victory of BJP in the state of West Bengal. Uh, in today's episode, we will be discussing the ideological connotations about not just the election results of West Bengal, but also the other assembly elections that took place alongside uh, West Bengal, Assam, Tamilnadu, Keralam, Puducherry. Uh, so let us begin. Um I'll start by introducing our guest for today. We have with us Satyajit Joshi, uh, just like our first episode. He's a seasoned journalist with over 40 years of experience with renowned newspapers. So, welcome to the Gupshup. Our next guest is Prafulla Ketkar. He is the editor of The Organizer. Uh, our next guest is Ratan Sharda ji. Dr. Ratan Sharda is a very renowned TV panelist, columnist, and has earned a PhD on RSS. So let us begin our discussion for today. Let us deep dive in the towards the most to the core of this entire discussion. This election is being viewed as an entire wipeout of the political representation of the left in the country. So I want to know your views, each one of you, regarding the same. What explains the long-term ideological decline of Communist Party of India and left politics uh, in the nation, as per the recent results of assembly elections across all the states? I'll begin with Prafulla ji.
Thank you, Himali, and thank you for inviting me for Gupshup. Uh, See, please try and understand. Communism as an ideology was never accepted in India. The violent method, the undemocratic method. So they resorted to the other tactics. Virtually in Bengal and Kerala, Communist Party occupied the spaces which Congress vacated. Though they played the cards of their usual, class struggle and land reforms, people who migrated from the then East Pakistan and then Bangladesh. Earlier, Sangh and Janasangh fought for their rights, but eventually the focus shifted on the Punjab front. 57 onwards, Communist Party occupied the space and then used the entire state machinery to keep a hold on it. So in last 49 years, what we are seeing, one of the other state, Kerala, Bengal or Tripura, they occupied a position of power. And they ruthlessly used the state machinery. But this ideological decline was very evident, not just in India. Communism as an ideology, the classical Marxism, has declined all over the world. So they are resorting to now new strategies. In parallelly, we need to understand, Himali, that the violent version of Naxalism is also, completely subsided. Bastar is also now violence free. Now, after that, I think the mainstream Communist Party will hardly have any space. But at the same time, I will give you a cautionary warning for the viewers that the neo-left strategies from other platforms like Congress, they will occupy the Congress space. They will infiltrate in Samajwadi Party. They will infiltrate in DMK or TVK or other parties. And then from the urban Naxal fronts will be activated. So we should be very, very cautious. But it is definitely true from this election that Communist Party will find it very, very difficult to revive themselves in mainstream politics.
I'll move on to Ratanji. This particular pattern that is emerging right now from the recent results, how can this be viewed as a result of? Is it a result of organizational stagnation? Is it narrative failure? Or is it civilizational disconnect that has resulted in a complete wipeout of the political left?
Prafulla has covered the opening points very well in this left decimation. I would say political communism is dying, but the cultural communism or cultural Marxism is not going anywhere. And we have to understand their working. He pointed out to their use of ruthless power. See, during Indira Gandhi's regime, they took, of course, Nehru was very sympathetic to them. So he opened the floodgates for them. But after during it, so that was 5-year plans. Then you had Indira Gandhi using them as a pawn to fight off the conservative or the old world of Congress, and she put them everywhere, including JNU, and from where they started their empire of empire of Marxism. When they had cultural studies, they had all other paraphernalia with them, and those academics are now filling the places of academia all over Bharat in every central university, and JNUs became the, I would say, center of epicenter of this development, and a new cultural organization to talk about then under UPA. They had tremendous power. They were part of NSC, including their urban Naxal friends. They had every possibility, whatever they had ready-made draft for what policies they wanted, and Sonia Gandhi simply signed on the dotted line. So that is where they got complete control, and the state machineries have academics in their hand. They had media in their hand, with all media schools falling in line, and they had this political power also. As the famous dialogue goes that सरकार तुम्हारी है पर system हमारा है, which we can saw they are still there in very well put into the various government machinery. You can find them everywhere. They still assert their power, and the reason you asked for the decimation at the culture, at the political level, was very simple. That they are ideological dinosaurs, as I call them. There is total ideological inertia. China has changed, Russia has changed, but they are not ready to change. Secondly, they had no Indian roots. They were totally dependent on outsiders for inspiration, for ideas, and for every kind of political support also to begin with. With their right from the day they were established first in 1921 in Tashkent by M.N. Roy, and then down to the 2025 with the actual registration in India as Communist Party of India, not the Indian Communist Party. And they, even their finances, they were helped along, and they could never reconcile to the Indian cultural ethos. That was a failing. So while they were able to control the academia and the media by propagating their idea of Western worldview, of secularism, of civilization, but people at large, people with who could not forget their traditional cultural history, could never identify with them. So as soon as the time came, as soon as the education and the public prabodhan, as we say, by RSS continued for years together, finally they woke up, and that became the starting point or decimation of communism. And many still don't know that after independence, communists actually launched a violent armed struggle against the Indian state, claiming that it was only bourgeois independence, which was the sentence used by Stalin. That is their failing, the biggest failing. Till they reconcile to the Indian ethos and forget the traditional Marx definition of religion and culture, they will never find support here. They can keep enjoying the cultural freedom again, but they can also corrupt. So in USA, if you look, they had no power. They hijacked Democratic Party using various movements, and that thought process, New Left or cultural Marxism, was used very effectively to take over the entire Democratic Party. And that is why Republicans became more strong. That is why violence hit the street. So that is where we have to be very careful.
Yes, you rightly said about public prabodhan initiated by the RSS. Presently, considering the scenario, there is a wave of Hindutva that is running across the nation. People are realizing, reclaiming their Hindu roots. They are being conscious about their Hindu roots. So if we consider the present assembly elections, the states, religion played a very important role. You look at the demographics of Assam and West Bengal. You look at the political stance taken by Stalin in Tamil Nadu regarding Sanatan Dharma. Looking at the politics of Keralam altogether. So religion definitely was at the center stage at all these assembly elections. I want to know from Satyajit Joshi, sir, that uh, the stand of communism or the Communist Party regarding religion, their history of how they have viewed religion altogether in India, uh, did it play a significant role here uh, in the results?
Of course, for communist, religion is always opium. Karl Marx has described religion as an opium. But to my understanding knowledge, Karl had never studied or experienced what is Indian culture. Marx might have called religion as an opium, but it was based on the experience in Europe, which had saw crusades for centuries, the conflict between two Abrahamic religions. But that was not the case in India, I think. India has altogether different kind of religion. Actually, is not the proper word for Hindutva or Hindu. But ठीक है, uh, religion is always discarded, ridiculed by the Marx, and that was the basic, I think, reason because of which Marxist people they got disconnected with the Indian masses. They used to humiliate Hindutva. They used to ridicule Hindutva. They never respected Hindutva. I remember incident in Ayodhya. Sitaram Yechuri was invited for the consecration ceremony in Ayodhya. He didn't attend it. Okay, it is your personal call. But that was not an occasion to ridicule the sentiments of the people, of the Hindus, who were looking at the event as an historic event in after generations. There was no reason. So this is the, I think, political mistake, and that these kind of mistakes communists have been committing for years and generations, 3 4 years. It is a very sorry state of affairs for communists. During their centenary year celebration, there is not a single state in India which is ruled by communists. That is one part, and their representation in the house has gone into single digit. Take the case of Kerala is the only last hope for them where a communist can revive. But as Ratan, Sharda and Prafulla rightly suggested, that was after all an imported ideology which is based on materialism, while Indian cultural ethos, Indian thoughts, ideology is completely based on spiritualism. They try to implant that ideology in Indian side, but in the course of time, they got failure because they didn't understand the pulse of the people. Hindutva hai DNA. They didn't understand it. They didn't accept it. They didn't respect it. And because of which, I think communists have come to such a sorry state of affairs. They are now absolutely in bad shape with no hopes. But as Ratanji rightly pointed out, they will never give up. Certainly, they will never give up. You can find, I can give you several examples. These communist people have gradually, they have made space for themselves in various parties. Take the case of Congress. Now, many Congress people are using the leftist terminology. Take the case of Shiv Sena in Maharashtra. They see their social media post. They are all speaking in terms of leftist language, communist language. So they will try to keep their ideology alive. That is their right also. But Hindutva being ridiculed by communism, I think communists are paying very heavy price, and they are struggling for their existence right now only because of people have awoken to the Indian civilization ethos.
Right. Uh, Moving on to the next question, I would like to ask this question particularly to Prafullaji. owing to the strategies of regional politics, particularly if we say if we look at in the states of West Bengal and Tamil Nadu, we see regional identities had so far dominated national identity of the demographic in these particular areas. But considering the present results, is it so that these regional identities, maybe Dravidian identity in case of Tamil Nadu or the Bengali identity in case of West Bengal, have converged in the recent time towards their national identity in case of the people of in case of the demographic of the states? And if so, then how and why has that happened?
I think Ratanji wants to add something to what Satyajit ji said. Then I'll take up your question.
Sure. Ratanji,
Thank
please
you.
go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Prafulla. Two very simple things. One is during these elections, communists had to change their stance on Sabrimala, which shows that they have realized their folly to some extent. Secondly, Dattoppan Thengdi ji, I was listening to his some earlier lectures. When he was talking about Dangeji in the later part of his life, writing articles, claiming the source to be coming from Hindu scriptures, Hindu philosophy, including communism, including all other world's ideas, that Hindu scriptures and Hindu civilization had all those answers, and that showed that he had abandoned his earlier totally irreligious and non-civilization approach, but communists didn't understand that, and he was sidelined.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of points to this, and then I'll come to your regional identity and linguistic identity question.
Yeah.
There is one famous book by P. Keshavan Nair called Beyond Red, an apostate on communism. He was thrown out of the party for writing on Vedas and Upanishads and Indian scriptures. That kind of intolerance they practice. So communism in India virtually has become a bunch of hypocrites. And Ambedkar realized that very early, and so Baba Sahib always, warned his followers against communism. As at one point he said, "I can be anything else but communist." But see, the same communists who abused Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar when he was alive, they boycotted him during his election both in Mumbai and Bhandara. After 69, in the name of Dalit Panther, suddenly they brought Ambedkar and Marx together. And then virtually, tried to appropriate it. The same communist who said not just the freedom, as Ratanji pointed out, but even this constitution as bourgeois constitution, and it should be overthrown. That was their stand when constitution was adopted. They are asking today everybody who is following the constitution, who opposed the constitution.
It was the official resolution. It was the official resolution passed in Communist Party meeting. Yes, absolutely right.
Yes. And the same communists, in their personal lives, they say, "Oh, no, this is my personal faith." They will stand by all Islamists. They will try to defend religious rights in the name of Islamophobia. And for all Hindus, they suddenly, go, "Oh, no, religion is not allowed. It is secularism." This kind of hypocrisy has actually exposed them everywhere, especially in India. Now, coming to your identity question, please try and understand, Mali. Nobody, like for example, when 1905 to 1911, when the Vande Mataram movement took off and the Bengal was partitioned on religious lines, Hindu Muslims came together and they actually forced British to take back the partition. British were forced to shift their capital from Calcutta to Delhi.
Yeah.
Now, in this background, what British did, British on the one hand infiltrated this idea, this Vande Mataram is communal. Muslim League was made big. Muslim League virtually became the sole negotiator on behalf of Indian Muslims. Unfortunately, Congress fell prey to their pressures, which led to 1937 resolution to partition or divide the Vande Mataram, leaving away 3 stanzas. The same decision led to the partition of India. But at the same time, British infiltrated another idea in 1919, 1920 of linguistic identity. Before that, there is no historical reference to any of Indian literature around linguistic nationalism. Of course, in Maharashtra Dharma is there. In Bengal, Bengali literature and Renaissance is there. But nobody talking about Bengal, in Renaissance in Bengal, actually talking about Bengali Renaissance. They were talking about Indian Renaissance. So Bengali nationalism and Indian nationalism is something different. That was never there. This is only, when Congress accepted this idea, and it was originally again a left idea to say that, India is a conglomeration of many nationalities. India was never a nation. British again injected this idea. Before we arrival, you were never a nation. So my simple question is, if you were never a nation, why did you call your company East India Company? You should have called your company a Surat Company, because you started company there. First, charter. So, but unfortunately, we bought that idea, and from Congress Committee for Telugu people was formed. Then Congress Committee for Marathi, Gujarati, Tamil, and now this has virtually become a, But in India, the beauty is, as RSS Sar Sangh second Sar Sangh Chalak Guruji Golwalkar said, all Indian languages are national languages because they express the same national spirit. I always give the example in entire, Satyajit Ji talked about crusade. The actual background of emergence of left was the conflict between the Protestants and the Catholics.
Yeah.
And the murderous part, and communism and liberalism, both the ideologies emerged actually out of Protestantism. So protesting against religion virtually became the liberal left, idea. So anything scientific has to be anti-religious, anti-culture, and even they tried to transplant the same idea in Bharat also. So why I'm insisting on this? This linguistic idea, ethnic idea, religious idea of nationalism was deeply rooted in European nation-state system of 1648 Westphalian Treaty, which was never applicable in Indian context, because in India, if you see for the larger civilizational terms, we have a common connotations and common ideas. So Himalaya, Hind Mahasagar, or Hindu Kush, Ayodhya, Kashi, they all were cultural symbols for every Indian. Every Indian called this, Europeans were fighting whether this earth is flat or spherical. In 15th century, they call it scientific. They call it protest. That's how Protestantism evolved. All Indian languages call the study of earth as Bhugola Shastram. So Bhu is goal, has been known to Indians, and all Indian languages call it Bhugol. So, the idea of Punya Bhumi, the sacred land, has been common in Indian languages. So, unless we understand this, unfortunately, in the post-independent India, the politics and the mobilizational strategies during election especially always try to play around this linguistic identity. And that's why Dr. Ambedkar insisted that one state, one language is fine. But why one language has to have one state? It will lead to unnecessary linguistic nationalism leading to separatism. That was his warning. Unfortunately, in Bengal, earlier communists and then Mamata Banerjee's TMC played around the same card. For them, Bengali, Bangladeshi Muslims were accepted, but Hindi-speaking Marwadis or Biharis were not accepted. This kind of thing was never there in India. Constitution also doesn't permit it. Yes, you can have preference in jobs for the locals. You can have special strategies to promote and preserve our languages, but they are doing it at the cost of, they are not fighting against other just against other Indian languages. They are giving preference to English, and at the cost of English, they are subsiding Indian languages and then calling themselves as Tamil nationalism or Bengali nationalism. This is again a hypocrisy which needs to be exposed, which needs to be talked about. I think this time the Hindu identity in Bengal. Earlier, it was the same with Ahomia identity in Assam. Ahomia identity in Bengali identity were considered as loggerheads, and Ahomia identity and Hindi, again played the card. But now, what is happening? People no longer find a contradiction. They have realized that Assamese, Tamil, Bengali, all languages can be secured only under Hindutva umbrella. If you are Hindu, then only you can accept multiple languages coexisting. And that's why I think in Bengal and Assam at least, people have realized this. We need to take this discussion forward in masses so that they do not consider their linguistic pride as enmity towards other languages.
I'm sure Ratanji and Satyajit ji would have something to add to this. Ratanji?
Yes, we can keep on adding and we keep on discussing. These are our 100-year-old continuous discussions in RSS. So, see, as Praful pointed out about the linguistic game that British played, I'll go a bit further. Even Dravidian identity, the Dravid-Aryan divide, was a British construct. Justice Party used it. Later, DK used it, based on which DMK came up. So their entire existence is based on dividing Dravidians and non-Dravidians, as they call it. Though it is very clear that Dravid was a geographical term used by even Shankaracharya, saying, I come from Dravid. That means water from three sides and the earth, the land. From there on, this artificial construct of Aryan invasion theory, then you had this Dravid-Aryan divide, and then you had Sikh identity issues created again with a lot of effort. You must give credit to them that Macaulay spent 20 years learning Gurmukhi and then started translating the Sikh history and the Sikh scriptures. The way British looked at it, the way they wanted to put the seed in place for further division. In 1909, he had support from Khan Singh Nabha, who wrote Why I'm Not a Hindu. That book has become kind of scriptural for the Khalistanis. And based on that, they floated the idea of Shri Gurudwara Prabandhan Committee, SGPC, in 1920, which first time laid down the foundation that Sikhs are different from Hindus. Before that, even till the census, there was no issue that any Sikh would find himself different from the Hindu society, because after all, Hindu society is what part of it became Sikh and kept continuously gave sons to Sikh Panth, but it became a template of which British put in place. And slowly that poison we saw is seeing the result in Khalistan 1.0. Then it failed because they couldn't divide Hindu Sikhs. Now Khalistan 2.0, where the basic argument is that we are different from not just Hindus, but we are more close to Muslims. So that is how things can be taken away. And of course, we had this princely states being integrated, and we were not called still federation, we were called union. And the word that even now the separatist people talk about, right from Rahul Gandhi onwards, and this play of word, while it was tipped in the bud by Ambedkar by using the word federation, they would have been happy with that also, because the basic premise is that British put in our mind that we are multicultural, multinational entity, which they brought together. Now, this is the fundamental debate that we always have, that what is the origin of our nationhood. As Manmohan Vaidyaji many times says, that we are the only country who was not able to define its nationhood for 75 years, because that is kind of artificial construct the communists made, and they were quite successful. And even the issue of inside or outside, which was expanded on the base of language, is something which is never there. My father came to Mumbai in 1949. We lived with Marathis. We lived as part of Mumbai. Nobody ever talked about it till Shiv Sena used it as a tool which they later gave up, of course, in favor of Hindutva, but still being banded whenever required. So this too can be used anywhere, and still you can't reach anywhere. See, Karnataka was successful, Bangalore was successful. The Kannada Vedike never became the important force they wanted in the name of language. Bangalore accepted everybody, even if they resented to some extent the way we behaved in Bangalore, the people from outside, because very disciplined, very cool society. In Gujarat, it never became an issue. Even now, it is never an issue. That is the reason Gujarat has progressed much better than all other states which banded this issue. So this issue has been created, and I think that issue has to be fought ideologically, and communists also have gone for it, and that is where we there was only exception was communists stood against Khalistanis in the Khalistan 1.0 movement, except that they have always supported multination, they have always supported multicultural. Adhikari doctrine is well known. So these are the forces against we are up in the coming years.
Right. My question is to Satyajit ji. Whatever vulnerabilities these states pose in today's time politically, uh, do you think the political frameworks that existed post independence, that developed post independence in these states, uh, have a role to play in the vulnerabilities that are being posed today?
Yeah, of course. Before that, I would like to add one point which Prafulla and Ratanji has already said, and that is about regional or linguistic identity. See, the current election, there is a small, big, strong undercurrent that shows that people are seriously thinking to say goodbye to regional parties. Trinamool Congress, after all, was a regional party. It might be claiming itself as a national party, but it can never perform even in the neighboring Assam. Similar is the case of DMK, Stalin's DMK. DMK was also a regional party, and it speaks for Dravid cause, whatever it is. So, setback to Trinamool Congress and setback to DMK, even if after the emergence of TVK and all these things, established regional political parties, they have got a setback because of the voters' verdict. I think this is very significant, and if this trend is continued, then I think there will be a significant change in the national politics also. Because take the case of other regional parties, Shiv Sena leaders in Maharashtra, they are very anxious and worried after the Bengal election because they look at it as a decline of regional parties. They look at it as the weakening of indie bloc, because indie bloc basically other than Congress all are basically regional parties. So if people have stopped supporting regional parties, then it would change the national discourse of the politics. That is my first feeling. And what you say is that vulnerability of the, of course, it will take few more years to come out of this intellectual mindset which has been dominating all of us for almost more than 7 decades or something like that. But we cannot deny the fact that whatever Congress or communist they have been teaching us for years, people have realized now, and they are coming back to their roots. That's what I feel. So all other forces will certainly try to continue and try to continue their earlier version also by different methods. But I think people of India have now realized that which way they should adopt for, and I'm sure that it's not going to be a very easy job for the communist or Congress to expect support from the people now.
Right. Uh, since we are falling short on time, I'll move on to the next question. This particular incident that has taken place in the political history of this country, the entire wipeout of political left. Do you all think that this is just this phenomena is restricted to Indian politics, or does it have a global positioning? Each one of you, please go ahead with your responses. I'll start with Prafulla ji, followed by Ratan ji, and then Satyajit ji.
No, as I said, after a decline of USSR, uh, what happened after Russian Revolution, communism as a traction, the traditional communism as a traction, declined in Europe. Then they switched over to America, and they realized that American academia and American think tanks is the easy way to infiltrate. So cultural Marxists created a space there, and they infiltrated. After 1967 in India, they found the same scope with Mrs. Gandhi trying to accommodate them for the support she wanted, and maybe under Russian or then USSR pressure, all the policies, the socialist policies that she wanted to implement, it was a very convenient win-win game. So she gave outsourced entire ideological program to the left, but retained power for the Congress. What has happened that Ratanji was talking about the National Advisory Council and post 1990s? On the one hand, due to globalization, the traditional left completely lost any ideal. China was also economically, it is more a state-controlled capitalism instead of socialism. They didn't have anything. So what they tried to do, on the one hand, they created Hindutva hegemonic identity narrative on nuclear issue, on issue of Ram Mandir, on issue of women, constitution. Suddenly, they started questioning everything. So Hindutva is not scientific, Hindutva is anti-woman, Hindutva is... So all these narratives started in 1990s. They started abusing Ram and Mahabharat and everything. So all these things found them space in 2004 when UPA was formed. And this UPA experiment actually gave first time at the center level, union level, and they used the legislative platforms, whether in the form of Manarega, right to education. Through that, they created provisions so that their ideology can be used, the state machinery's intervention in temple, in education, all these things. Now what we are seeing is, with the political dissemination further, they are infiltrating in... If you see, Himali, just remember this one sentence. If you see the close aides and associates of all the political parties today, except BJP, have somebody having a strong left or JNU links. The coterie of Rahul Gandhi, the coterie of Akhilesh, the coterie of Mamta Kari, of DMK. Unless we understand this, what is actually happening, yes, the traditional left is gone. Communist parties will not survive as communist parties, not just in India, even outside world, but they will always try to occupy spaces in other space, in other parties.
Let us proceed with Ratanji's response. How do you perceive this particular incident of complete political wipe out of the left in the global picture? How do you look at it?
I couldn't listen to Prafulla, so maybe I'll be duplicating some ideas, I don't know. But basically, when you say wipe out of communists, it's not so easy. Here's an idea which appeals to many people, especially the youth, where they are always against any kind of oppression, exploitation, whatnot. And when neo-Marxism has opened so many ways of being for calling oneself oppressed, right from as a student to parent to wife and family, everywhere you have opportunity to call yourself an oppressed person. The entire in Islamophobia ideas are built around the cultural Marxism, which talks about any group oppressing anybody, and they said, oh, we are also oppressed. So from perpetrators of terror, whom everybody wanted to get rid of or afraid of, they have turned themselves into oppressed class and have termed the word Islamophobia, which is being very freely used now, academically accepted, everywhere it is accepted, and they can throw that at you whenever you criticize, even with facts. Secondly, the wipe off of left in Europe, you can see very clearly, they are on the retreat. There, the reason was that total flop economic policies which saw the governments going bankrupt. Secondly, their support for the radical Islam in the name of whatever it was. Maybe they wanted to hang on to somebody who will save them from extinction. The way they have spoiled the entire societies with wokeism, with fluid gender and whatnot kind of education that they give to the students, to children, many people have been so horrified. So that is one part where people found their entire lifestyle, their family, their society being uh, disturbed and split apart, which has happened in USA also. And on the other side, they are using Islamists as a multiplier to spread their ideas. So it's a strange bedfellows that Islam and communists are together. Many people are seeing through it. That is why you see swing of people moving to most of the time moving to the right, to capitalist parties and conservative parties. Somewhere they've gone back also because the leader may not served. In Latin America, it's much more complex, because if you are a leftist regime, then US is sitting on your head to try to topple you. But they went through Venezuela experiment, which clearly showed that left doesn't work. New York Mayor Mamdani talked of distributing poverty, not wealth. So now they're trying to put more and more taxes. So this model of distributing poverty is not appealing to people anymore. And wokeism that has spread havoc with the people's lives has also created a kind of revulsion in the people's mind. So I think on that ground, even though cultural Marxism was uh, going very strong, these developments have actually put them on a defensive and reduced their impact. But they'll be there because you always need an idea of oppressed and oppressor and feeling persecuted. So that sense of victimhood and sense of persecution that communism creates, and especially the neo-Marxism, is an appeal which will stay. But at the larger level, these movements will fail unless they morph into something different, and you will see the decline even globally. Because see, Russia is no more a communist country. China is no more a communist country. Or except that crackpot regime of North Korea, there is no communist government left anywhere. They may be in the name Communist Party. Basically, there's a state machinery being controlled by a oligarchy or a big team of Communist Party people, but it's not communism at all.
So, if we look at the decline of communism in India from global perspective, to my understanding, decline in communism in India is not surprising. It was expected. In fact, I feel that it has happened little late, but it was a foregone conclusion that people in India will stop patronizing communism. There are two things. Firstly, why communism in other parts of world that was spread. It happened after particular position in Second World War. After Second World War, America and Russia, they were the two separate countries because of which Cold War took place. Now there were two parts of the world. World was divided into countries which were favoring America and the countries which were favoring Russia. And people who were in opposition of US, United States, that is America, they used to call themselves as communist. This happened in Eastern Europe. This happened in some part of the uh, Africa also. And the dictators over there, they used to call themselves communist because of Russian support. The Popan Thengri, who was a very scholar on communism, he always used to say that whether it is spread of communism or imperialism of Russia. In fact, it was imperialism of Russia, because all these countries, they used to call themselves communist because of Russian support only. They were surviving on the support of Russia. So that is the first part. Now, after collapse of USSR, all these countries, they actually stopped themselves calling communism. In reality, communist ideology was never implemented in several countries, even in Russia and even in China also. But the fact remains that communism, they used to call themselves communist. Now the thing is that basically any political ideology, communism after all is a political ideology, and any political ideology can survive only because of political power. Since communism has no political power right now in any of the country, it is very unlikely that communism will survive as a political ideology. But we cannot deny the strength of communism as an ideology, because by this time communism as an ideology has spread in other parts of human life also. So I personally I feel we cannot undermine the strength of communism as an ideology. Take the case of which I mentioned earlier also. Communists now has started spreading in other political parties also. Congress hai, Shiv Sena hai. They are starting spreading over there also. But as a main political stream, I personally doubt whether they will survive, because they are completely lacking popular support. Communism has showed its limitation, its restrictions, and as a political ideology, people have realized that it cannot upgrade their life, it cannot bring change in their lives. Same is the case of capitalism also, and both capitalism and communism, they stood exposed right now because of their inbuilt limitation. Communism is not the exception to this trend, and I personally feel that as an ideology it may survive for a few decades another, but as at the end of the day it won't survive, it won't be able to bring any change in the lives of people as a communist strategy. They will take new forms, but they will try to adopt new methods, and they will try to keep their ideas alive, but it will have limitations because of lack of political support, basically, I think.
Since the topic was a very ideological one, the Gupshup can go on for a very long time. But for today's episode, this would be it. I'm sure you have a lot of things to share as well as the audience. Do share your comments in the comment box. If you haven't subscribed our channel, please subscribe News Bharati on YouTube and like the video if you have liked the entire discussion, and share it with your loved ones. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the guests for joining with us. Thank you.